Our next speaker is going to be Dr. Gilles. He's going to speak to you very shortly. Are we ready? You all? Okay. Dr. Gilles.
I did show you before how when people arrived to Haiti, they just died. From 1 million people came down to 300,000 by 1804. It is following 1804 that our population began to rise. What you have to recognize is that the revolution saved us. You are alive today for the sacrifices that those who preceded you made, and that allowed the Haitian population to rise to now about 10 million from just 30,000, from just 300,000. Had the revolution not taken place, you certainly would not be alive today, because the population of Haiti that kept dying would be replaced, and all your foreparents would have been dead. It is because the Haitian people were dying in Haiti that almost all, after 100 years, almost all people who arrived in Haiti and led this revolution were new arrivals from Africa. They had all, more than 75%, been there for less than 5 years. These are the people that the French never conquered. That's why you don't speak French. When a person asks you, oh, la France, they conquered Haiti, he said, not in the last 5 years. When the last 5 years at Haiti, 300,000 people arrived from Africa, and they're the ones who led the Haitian Revolution. They never spoke French. They never participated in French culture. And you can see that across the land. That's why they say, But one of the impacts of Haiti on the US is that when the revolution began, Baltimore passed a law that said that they had to remove anybody that came from Haiti to Baltimore between 1792 and 1797. They should consider them dangerous. But the real impact of Haiti on the United States and African Americans is that when Haiti stopped the commerce of people as slaves, Haiti did not only stop it in Haiti, Haiti sent out ships that captured boats that were bringing slaves elsewhere and liberated them in Haiti. And so when African Americans heard this, wherever they lived, they called it Haiti. And that's why there's Haiti, Louisiana, Haiti, Missouri, Haiti, Pennsylvania. This old spelling of Haiti, this is the way Haiti used to be spelled at the time of the revolution. And so almost every state in the United States where there was a large black population has a community called Haiti. In fact, even Europeans call communities where there was a high ratio of Africans to Europeans Haiti, saying, whoa, this ratio is too high. You're making another Haiti. And so that's how the name got to stick. One of the biggest contributions of Haiti to the United States is that Toussaint Louverture, by defeating the French, permitted the US to actually capture the Louisiana territory. Recently, we went to Louisiana. They were celebrating the 200th anniversary of this purchase, and with it, they had Toussaint Louverture's name and photographs everywhere. And in fact, they put a plaque for him under the Mississippi Bridge to thank him for having helped the United States to acquire the Louisiana territory. And recently, President Clinton himself in Haiti declared that it is thanks to Haiti that he comes from a state that is now part of the United States. But this is what Haiti did for the US. For us, it got us this. And this is my homeland. It is the Haitian Revolution that allowed me to tell you today that I am from Pestel. And then everywhere in Haiti, it allowed us to gain this great land from these caverns. This is a beautiful cavern just recently discovered around Pestel to the great mountains of Haiti. This is a spectacular place. But the Haitian Revolution, when you ask you what did Haiti do not phrase what Haiti did in racist terms, the first black country. Say radical. Haiti is not the first black country. We've been saying there are plenty of other black countries, Nago, Congo, and so forth. Haiti is the first modern country to proclaim the equality of all mankind. That's what Haiti did. It is the only place in the world. It was the first place in the world to declare that everyone is human and has certain rights, and the government is going to be sure that the rights are protected. This represents the greatest moral progress made by people over the last thousands of years. No one else did this. So the major progress of humanity in morality was helped and established by IT. But to really appreciate this, and please, you guys kind of stop me because I can get into a row, right? But I think the major point, 5 minutes? But the point I want to make for you is that Haiti did not, thank you. Haiti did not only make the Haitian Revolution. Haiti made 3 major revolutions. Do you hear this? 3 major revolutions, which is the Haitian Revolution, the American Revolution, and the French Revolution. All of these 3 revolutions originates in Haiti. To understand that, you need to understand coffee. Coffee and sugar. We were brought over to Haiti to work the coffee plantations, and that killed us. And because of working conditions there, Haitians rebelled and took over the island. But interestingly, this coffee, money made from coffee plantations, went to France, enriching France. France made fabulous wealth. Haiti produced half of the world's coffee and about 90% of the world's sugar for France. That money made in France was sent to the United States. What occurred is England beat the French in the 7-Year War. Then the French wanted their revenge. To get their revenge, they wanted to make the US, England, lose the United States. And so what France did, it sent money made from coffee and sugar in Haiti to the United States, and that fueled the American Revolution. The money that France sent to Haiti was money that did not go to France, and France suffered a budget deficit. The King of France, Louis XVI, called for a meeting to impose taxes so that they can cover that deficit made by diverting the Haitian money to the United States, and that led to the French Revolution. Coffee had become so big in the United States, Haitian coffee. The United States was the principal importer of Haitian coffee. And coffee was the drink of thinkers at that time. That's why now cafes have reopened with Starbucks. The idea is you went and you were sipping your Haitian coffee so you can clear up your mind and have great thoughts. This is what the American forefathers did. In fact, at a coffee house in Philadelphia, selling Haitian coffee was where the Declaration of Independence was first read. In fact, before the Boston Tea Party, the American leaders enjoyed Haitian coffee and named it an American drink and went to toss British coffee, the British tea. To understand this, the French, this is Rochambeau, a French general who is said to be an American forefather. That's why they give him this stamp. This is De Grasse, who brought 3,000 soldiers from Haiti to fight in Virginia, and he caused the British to lose New York. He captured New York for George Washington. In return, here is a U.S. stamp thanking Rochambeau and De Grasse and others like Lafayette as American forefathers. These generals were sent from Haiti to assist the U.S. They bought weapons, they financed it, they bought them uniform, they provide tactical advisors, and they even sent Haitian personnel to go fight the war. This is Rochambeau, a statue for him in Washington. He fought in Washington, in the U.S. for the American War. He fought in the U.S., that is illegal stuff, and then they faced off later in Haiti. Now I'm going quickly so that you can understand. People ask me, well, how did Haiti become so poor with such a proud history? Well, it's important to understand that nous avons la France. Right? So to understand this well, what you have to get is that French ruled Haiti for 100 years and built no schools. Do you hear this? This government ruled Haiti for 100 years, built no school. Then after it killed 150,000 people, for what? There was no reason for the Haitian Revolution. You think you have to go outside and fight for you to just wake up and follow your own thoughts? That's a God-given right. Haitians there was no reason for the war. We were supposed to have our rights. And the French killed 150,000 people because they wanted to be free. What kind of stupidity is that? And then here, after that, for the survivors, 300,000 people survived. And then they imposed $150 million, now valued at $21 billion that Haiti had to pay. By 1880s, 50% of the Haitian national budget went to paying France. By 1888, The Haitian National Bank belonged to a French bank, and it set the disastrous policies that ruined Haiti. By 1914, 80% of the Haitian national budget went to paying France. This is how Versailles got built and created poverty for us. These policies enrich France and then deprive us of our inheritance. But during the Haitian Revolution, we always knew that the road was going to be rough. We accepted that because it wasn't a matter of fighting to be rich. There's no historian at the time, no politician at the time bet that Haiti was going to be able to succeed with all the superpowers involved in the slave trade surrounding it. Haitians did not fight this for money, no. It was so that they would be free. And that they achieved, and the road was tough. Haiti built a citadel to prevent the re-enslavement of the population. When an American, Desmond de Versy, inspired by Haiti, he ran a false rumor in South Carolina that Haiti was going to finance the African American population here it was going to sponsor a war of independence to liberate themselves. And he was arrested. But, and then after his arrest, the United States built this fort in South Carolina, also called the Citadel, marking the Citadel. But this fort was really to defend and be a rapid response force should the revolution begin. And this was one of the premier military schools in the south of the United States called the Citadel. It was only after the American occupation of Haiti, or American invasion of Haiti, that Haitians began to migrate out of Haiti. And to be quick, not much more to go, what occurred is the United States displaced Haitians from their lands to invite American companies to take over. They gave some American companies like 5,000, 50,000 acres, and they burned the peasants' homes. They burned their homes. In return, these Haitian people had to go to the Dominican Republic and to Cuba in seeking jobs, and they end up working on American plantations in Cuba and in the Dominican Republic.